So nobody has joined the meeting yet. Uh, I'll wait for a couple of minutes and then I will start the session even if nobody has joined. And this can be used, since this is being recorded, it can be used by the other students later on. Uh, so I'll start the session. My name is Anurag Gupta, uh, and I am a teaching assistant for this course. So the format of the live interaction session is as follows. I'll be discussing the MCQs, uh, and uh, and I'll then explain in detail uh, about the MCQ and the related concepts. So since nobody has joined in, I'll still start the session, and this is going to be recorded, so students can watch the session later on. So last week I had stopped here. So this is we are still discussing week three's questions. So there was some confusion with this particular question. So I've rephrased it, and we'll discuss this now. A sprinter will will have greater percentage of muscle fibers. There are four options: type A, type 1, B, type 2A, C, type 2AB, or D, type 2B. So whoever is watching the video can pause and try and answer the question. Uh, so if you recall, there are four types of muscle fibers, and type 1 is has least fatigability. It does not high resistance to fatigability, and it produces lower forces. Similarly, type 2A, and this is used by people who are walking. Type 2A is also fatigue resistant, but not as much as type 1, and this is used by people who are walking fast walking. And type 2AB, so this type 2A produces more force than type 1. Type 2AB it has intermediate fatigue resistance, and it produces more force than type 2A, and it is used by people who are jogging. And then we have type 2B. This is very fatigable, highly fatigable, but it produces a very high amount of force. So sprinter requires an explosive force of energy to do the sprint, and so the answer should be 2B. So sprinters, that is why they get, since they recruit uh, motor units with 2B muscle fibers, they get easily fatigued, but however they produce a high amount of force which is required for sprinting. So the answer is type 2B. Which of the following statements are true with respect to supination? Uh, so again, you can just pause the video if you're watching the video later on. You can pause and try to answer the question by yourself. So I'll go ahead and discuss this question. So there are four options. A, during supination, the triceps are activated to prevent flexion of the elbow. B, during supination, the triceps are activated to prevent extension of the elbow. C, during supination, the biceps cause supination as well as elbow flexion. And D, during supination, the biceps cause pronation as well as elbow flexion. So let us recall uh, uh, what the biceps are for. So we know that, let us consider this elbow joint here. So this is the elbow joint, and this is my hand here. So we have the biceps muscle here, and we have the triceps muscle here. and this is the triceps. So contraction of the biceps causes flexion. This is flexion. And contraction of the triceps causes extension. So if this contracts, if the triceps contract, it causes extension. So the question here is related to supination. So you might be wondering why I'm discussing about uh, flexion extension of the elbow. So let us recall, uh, this is supination, this is pronation. This is supination, this is pronation. So during supination, if you see, the biceps are also activated. So we have uh, the biceps, we have supinator muscles, and also biceps are also involved in supination. So a particular muscle can be involved in multiple actions. Not so in this particular case, you can see that uh, the biceps is involved in flexion, but also the biceps is involved in supination. And you can try it yourself. You can put your arm on the biceps, and when you do the supination, you can feel the biceps contract. So the biceps have two actions. One is uh, flexion. It is involved in flexion and is also involved in supination. And of course, there are other muscles which are involved in supination. I think somebody has joined in. So the biceps are involved in these two actions. So we know that a muscle can be involved in multiple actions, right? Uh, so, so to prevent during supination, since biceps are contracting, it is also contributing to supination. Also, it is contributing to flexion. So we need to negate uh, the contribution of the flexion contribution of the biceps, and that is why when the biceps are contracting, to prevent flexion, the triceps also need to contract so that to oppose this flexion. Since contraction of triceps causes extension and contraction of biceps causes flexion, to prevent the flexion of the biceps, the triceps need to contract during the supination. So let us go through the options. During supination, the triceps are activated to prevent flexion of the elbow. So this is correct. This is the correct answer. During supination, the triceps are activated to prevent extension of the elbow. This is wrong because uh, triceps itself causes extension. It does not prevent extension. So this is wrong. Then during supination, the biceps causes supination as well as elbow flexion. Uh, the biceps cause supination as well as elbow flexion. This is correct. We know that biceps are involved in two functions: supination as well as elbow flexion. During supination, the biceps cause pronation as well as elbow flexion. No, this is not true. So the answer is A and C. Moving on to the next question. Which of the following are true with respect to pennate muscles? So you can pause the video here and try and attempt this question on your own. So let me go through the options. A. Lifting weights lead to an increase in muscle mass, which leads to increase in pennation angle. The overall effect is an increase in the force production capacity of the muscle. So let us discuss some concept, and then we will go through these options. So we know that there are different types of pennate muscles, unipennate, bipennate, and the muscle fibers in these pennate muscles are at an angle like this. So this is the pennation angle theta, and we know, like for example, if the muscle fiber contracts, then there is force generated in this particular direction along and since this is the tendon, only a component of this force is transmitted along this tendon. So it is F cos theta, that is the component of the force that is transferred along this tendon. So we know that if theta increases, then the force, the component of F cos theta decreases, and if theta decreases, F cos theta increases. We know this because we know that uh, when theta is equal, cos theta, cos 0 is equal to 1 and cos 90 is equal to 0. What happens is, when there is more muscle mass, then there is more there are more muscle fibers that are packed in this particular region, and hence this particular angle, it increases. The angle increases. So what happens is, the force that is transmitted along this particular tendon, which is also called as aponeurosis, the component of the force decreases, but there are more number of muscle fibers now packed into this particular region. So even if the component of force that is transmitted along the tendon is decreased, the overall effect, because of the large number of muscle fibers that are packed, the overall effect is that the amount of force that is transmitted to the tendon increases. Uh, Let us discuss another case. In old people, what happens is, they lose muscle mass. So since there is less amount of packing of muscle fibers in this uh, pennate muscles, the theta decreases. It becomes like this. Since there is less muscle mass, so theta decreases. Hence, the amount of force by each individual fiber, the force that is transmitted, increases. However, the overall effect is that since there is number of muscle fibers, the overall effect is that the force for old people, the force production capacity decreases for the pennate muscles. So now let us go through these options. Lifting weights lead to an increase in muscle mass. This is true, which leads to an increase in pennation angle. That is also true, as we saw here. The overall effect is an increase in the force production capacity of the muscle. This is correct. Lifting weights lead to an increase in muscle mass, which leads to a decrease in pennation angle. This is not true. The overall effect is an increase in the force production capacity of the muscle. So this particular option is not correct. Uh, the third option is lifting weights lead to a decrease in muscle mass. This is not correct. Decrease, it leads to an increase in muscle mass, not a decrease, which lead to an increase in the pennation angle. Uh, Decreasing muscle mass actually leads to a decrease in pennation angle, which is seen in old people. The overall effect is an increase in the force production capacity of the muscle. So this option is false. Which lifting weights leads to a decrease in muscle mass. This is false, which leads to a decrease in pennation angle. Actually, decrease in muscle mass leads to a decrease in pennation angle, but that is not due to lifting weights. That is seen in older people. The overall effect is an increase in force production capacity. So this option is false. Correct answer is A. Let us see. If anybody has joined in, no, nobody has joined in. Let me just drink some water. When a motor neuron activates the muscle fibers it is attached to, then all muscle fibers will respond by a contraction. Only a few muscles can contract. None of the muscles might contract. None of the above. Uh, so let us recall that a motor neuron plus all the muscle fibers it innervates. This is called a motor unit. This is a very important concept. Now, what happens is when a motor unit fires, uh, all the muscle fibers that are innervated by the motor unit also contracts. So this is an obligatory response. The contraction of uh, the muscle fibers when a motor unit fires is an obligatory response. Uh, and another thing to recall is that one motor unit can innervate multiple muscle fibers, but one muscle fiber is innervated by only one motor unit. So this is another point that you should keep in mind. So let us go through the options. All muscle fibers will respond by a contraction. Only a few muscles can contract. This is a slightly ambiguous option. It doesn't. Uh, it's not specific as to what a few muscles mean here. So this is not the correct option. None of the muscles might contract. This is also not true. None of the above. All muscle fibers will respond by contraction. This is correct. So the answer is A. Moving on to the next question. Motor unit 1 has an innervation number of 112. Let me write this down. Motor unit 1, MU stands for motor unit, has an innervation number of 112, and motor unit 2 has an innervation number of 86. So let us recall that the size of a motor unit is decided by its innervation number. So this is a larger motor unit, and this the motor unit 2 is a smaller motor unit. Also, it is seen that motor units which have a larger innervation number are also are bigger in size. So this is another thing that you need to keep in mind. So which of the following statements are true? Motor unit 1 can produce less force and more control compared to motor unit 2. Okay, so here we are talking about two concepts. One is force and the other, and the other is control. Motor unit. So since this has larger innervation number, the force that it produces is going to be larger. So motor unit 1 produces more force. This produces lesser force. Okay. So motor unit 1 can produce less force and more control compared to motor unit 2. No, it cannot produce less force because it has a larger innervation number. So this is false. Motor unit 1 can produce greater force as well as greater control compared to motor unit 2. So let us discuss what is meant by control here. The ability to produce small amount of forces is what is being referred to as control here. For example, Uh, let's say I am holding a cup of a paper cup. So if I produce a large amount of force, I might crush the cup. Uh, so I don't have control of, I don't have control in that sense. In the sense that I'm not able to hold the cup because I don't have control over finer, smaller forces. But if I have control over, if I am able to produce smaller forces, I can hold the cup without crushing it. So I have control there. Similarly, for example, if I am writing using a pencil, in that case, again, I need to produce fine forces uh, to make the writing movements. So again, I need small fine forces to be able to control the movements. Another good example is when a surgeon is performing a surgery. The surgeon needs access to fine forces, very small amount of forces to be able to successfully perform the surgery. So control is being what the context of control is being discussed in that sense. So motor unit 1 can produce greater force as well as greater control compared to motor unit 2. No, this is not true. By default, since motor unit 2 is producing lesser force, it has more control. Motor unit 1 can produce greater force but has lesser control compared to motor unit 2. This is correct. And motor unit 2 can produce greater force but has lesser control compared to motor unit 1. No, this is not true. So the answer is C. Moving on to the next question. To achieve 100% maximum force in a muscle, the following needs to happen. A. All the motor units of the muscle need to be recruited. B. All the recruited motor units must fire at a high frequency. C. Both A and B. D. None of the above. So let us discuss an example here. Let us say I have a muscle which has 5 motor units, and if I recruit all the motor units, let's say I recruit all the motor units. I recruit motor unit 1, I recruit motor unit 2, I recruit motor unit 3, I recruit motor unit 4, and I recruit motor unit 5. It is not necessary that all of them are producing smooth tetanus. That is, it is not necessary that they are producing the maximum amount of force that can be produced. Even though they are recruited, uh, they can still be producing lesser force than what they are capable of. For example, let us consider this case here. Let us consider an example of a motor unit. So this is time, this is force, and force, let's say in millinewtons, and this is so let us say that at a particular frequency a motor unit is being fired. So this is the force that is being produced, and this is this particular for this particular frequency, this is the muscle this is the force that is maintained. This is called tetanus. So let us say that this frequency is 10 hertz. Then let us increase the frequency. Then what happens? This is what happens. So let us say this is 20 hertz, and then there are different levels. If we keep on increasing the force, the tetanus, the level of the force that is produced keeps on increasing, and then at a particular frequency uh, there is the smooth tetanus that is being produced. Let us say for this case it is 70 hertz, and above this, whatever frequency at which an action potential is a motor unit is firing, it cannot produce higher force than this. This is the maximum capacity of this particular muscle. motor unit. So the answer should be A, all the motor units of the muscle need to be recruited, and B, all the recruited motor units must fire at a high frequency. So these are the two options. So the answer is both A and B. So the option is C. So we can see this in one of the graphs. Let me just open that up. So you can see here that at this particular, so this is a slightly, yeah. So here, but the x-axis is percentage motor units recruited, and the y-axis is percentage maximal force. So you can see here that even though 100 motor units are recruited, at this particular stage, the force is not maximum. It is not 100% for this particular muscle. You can see that there is still a gap that can be increased. The force produced, the overall force produced by the muscle can still be increased further, and that can happen due to that this increase in the muscle force can happen due to by increasing the firing rate of all the motor units. Moving on to the next question. Match the following. So we have actually discussed this in one of the previous questions. So you can pause the video here and then try and answer the question yourself. So there are four options. Type 1 muscle fibers are extremely fatigue resistant. We have already seen this. So this is used for by people who are walking. Type 2A is fatigue resistant, has high fatigue resistance, but not as high as type 1. So this is used by people who do fast walking. Type 2 AB muscle fibers are have intermediate fatigability, and they are used by people who are jogging. They are used in activities such as jogging. And type 2B muscle fibers are highly fatigable, and they are used in activities such as sprinting. We have already seen this in one of the previous questions. So the answer is 1 matches to 4. 1 matches to 3. 2 matches to 4. 3 matches with 1. And 4 matches with 2. So which is that option? 1 matches with 3, 2 matches with 4, 3 matches with 1, and 4 matches with 2. A. The answer is A. Firing rate or discharge rate of motor units can be increased. Question 11. So you can pause the video here and try and answer the question. Firing rate or discharge rate of motor units can be increased. A. Only after all motor units are recruited. B. Only during motor unit recruitment. C. During motor unit recruitment and after motor unit recruitment as well. Or D. Firing rate is always constant and cannot be increased. So let us go through the options. This option is wrong. Firing rate is not always constant. We have seen this in one of the previous slides. Uh, A, only after all motor units are recruited. No, this is not true. Even if a few motor units are recruited, the force produced by those motor units can be modulated by changing the frequency of firing of the motor unit. Only during motor unit recruitment, no. Even after motor unit recruitment, the frequency can be increased. The discharge rate can be increased. So the answer is C, during motor unit recruitment and after motor unit recruitment as well. The answer is C. Which of the following statements are correct? A, many motor neurons innervate a muscle fiber. B, one motor neuron innervates different muscle fibers. C, one motor neuron can innervate many muscle fibers but only of different muscles. D, one motor neuron innervates many muscle fibers which can be of the same muscle as well as other muscles. So let us discuss this. You can pause the video and again try and answer the question, and then look at the explanation. Which of the following statements are correct? Many motor neurons innervate a muscle fiber. This is false. Let me tell you that one motor neuron, one motor unit, or one motor neuron one motor neuron innervates multiple muscle fibers, but one muscle fiber can muscle fiber can be innervated by only one motor neuron, a muscle fiber. So one motor neuron innervates multiple muscle fibers, but a single muscle fiber can be innervated by only one motor neuron. So a muscle fiber only has one master, which is the motor neuron that innervates it. It does not receive conflicting inputs from multiple motor neurons. So this is an important point that you need to keep in mind. Uh, so B, one motor neuron innervates different muscle fibers. This is correct. One motor neuron can innervate many muscle fibers, but only of different muscles. No, it can innervate muscle fibers of the same muscle as well as different muscles. And D, one motor neuron innervates many muscle fibers, which can be of the same muscle as well as other muscles. This is correct. So the answer is B and D. Uh, which of the following statements are true for pinnate muscles? Which of the following statements are true for pinnate muscles? A, fibers are arranged parallelly to each other, hence more force production capacity. B, more fibers can be arranged in a given area, hence more force production. C, fibers are arranged in an inclined fashion. Or D, fibers are present on only one side of the tendon. So, like before, you can try and answer this question. You can pause the video and try and answer this question, and then listen to the explanation. So, A, fibers are arranged parallelly to each other, hence more force production capacity. This is not true. Pinnate muscle fibers are not arranged parallelly. However, if you recall the abdominal muscles, the muscles in the abdomen are arranged parallel to each other. So this is false. More fibers can be arranged in a given area and hence more force production. This is true. This is an advantage of the uh, pennate muscles, that we can pack more number of fibers in pennate muscles. See, fibers are arranged in an inclined fashion. This is also correct. And D, fibers are always present on only one side of the tendon. No, this is true only for bipennate. Sorry, unipennate. But there are muscles. There are pennate muscles of different kinds, in which it can be arranged on either side of the tendon as well. That is, for example, in the bipennate. So the answer is B and C. Question 14. Which of the following are true regarding size principle? A. The brain can decide which motor units to be selected. No, this is okay. First, I'll go through the question. B. Motor units are recruited in order of increasing fatigability. C. A single motor unit will be preferred instead of a large number of smaller units to apply a given force. Or D. Size principle specifies that smaller motor units are recruited first. So you can pause the video and try and answer the question, and then look at the explanation of the question. So the brain can decide which motor unit is selected. No, this is false. This is because the selection of motor units is a spinal process, which is decided by the Henneman's principle, and it is not that the brain selects individual motor units. The computational load, if that was true, the computational load on the brain would be enormous. It's not possible to individually control motor units that are recruited. Uh, B. Motor units are recruited in the order of increasing fatigability. Yes. So they are recruited in order of so there's Henneman's principle, if you recall. HENNA. So motor units are recruited in increasing order of size, increasing order of fatigability, and there are some other things which are also involved. So yeah, this is the correct answer, B. So the least fatigable is first recruited, and then the more fatigable one is recruited. And option C, a single motor unit will be preferred instead of a large number of smaller motor units to apply a given force. Looks like somebody has joined in. Hi Mahesh, thank you for joining in. So currently I'm going through the MCQ questions. Since nobody had joined in, I was still discussing the MCQ questions. Since these lectures will be uploaded, uh, since these lectures will be uploaded, students can still utilize this. So right now I'm discussing a particular question. So I'll go ahead. The format in which I'm discussing is the format of these live sessions are as follows. I'll first discuss a question. I'll give the person who's I'll give you guys an opportunity to answer the MCQ, followed by following which I'll discuss the MCQ questions. So if you have joined one of the previous sessions, you'll know the format. So right now I'm discussing this particular question. So you can try and answer this. So which of the following are true regarding size principle? A. The brain can decide which motor units to be selected. B. Motor units are recruited in order of increasing fatigability. C. A single large motor unit will be preferred instead of a large number of small motor units to apply a given force. Uh, this is actually not true. Let us look at an example which will explain this concept. So let us assume that we want to produce a force of 10 newtons. F is equal to 10 newtons, and we have multiple motor units. So let us say we have a motor unit A. Let us call it motor unit A, which can produce a force of 10 newtons. And we have many other motor units. Let us name them motor unit 1, 2, 3 till 10, which can produce 1 newton each. So the question is, will we recruit all these 10 will the central nervous system recruit all these 10 motor units? Are all these 10 motor units recruited to produce 10 newton force, or this particular motor unit is recruited, motor unit A? So according to size principle, we know that, so first of all, if this is producing lesser force, it means that the size of the motor unit is small, and if you recall, the recruitment of motor units and also its fatigability is less. So if you recall, the recruitment of motor units happens in increasing order of fatigability and increasing order of size. So first, the smaller motor units will be recruited. Uh, so all these 10 motor units will be recruited to produce the 10 Newton force that is required. So this is a false statement. A single large motor unit will be preferred instead of a large number of smaller motor units. This is not in accordance with the Heinemann's principle. So this is not correct. And D, size principle specifies that smaller motor units are recruited first. This is correct. So the answer is B and D. Moving on to the next question. Mahesh, I hope you can hear me. Okay, Mahesh has left the meeting. Uh, Question 15. Which of the following are true regarding motor units? A. Most motor units produce high force. B. Most motor units have intermediate contraction times. C. Prolonged low intensity exercises increases fatigability. Or D. Prolonged high intensity exercises increase speed of contraction and maximal force. So again, you can go ahead and pause the video and try and answer this question and then listen to the explanation. So which are the true statements? So A, most motor units produce high force. If you recall from the lectures, majority of the motor units produce low force and have intermediate contraction times. Most motor units. So most motor units do not produce high force. This is the wrong statement. Most motor units have intermediate contraction times. This is correct. Prolonged low intensity exercises increases fatigability. This is false. Actually, low intensity exercises uh, increases the resistance to fatigability. And these kind of exercises, low intensity exercises, uh, probably affect type 1 muscle fibers. So this is the false statement. Prolonged high intensity exercises increases speed of contraction and maximal force. This is correct. So these high intensity exercises actually affects uh, type 2 muscle fibers, and it increases the contraction time and maximal force. Uh, so these kind of exercises actually lead to changes, some structural changes in the muscle fibers. For example, there is a change in there are some changes in the myosin proteins there are more number of proteins. There are more number of these contractile proteins due to these prolonged high intensity exercises. So, and there are some other reasons. So all these reasons contribute to high speed of contraction and maximal force. So the answer is A and D. Question 16. Which of the following are false in case of physical activity? A. Physical activity benefits only young and no benefit in case of old people. So this is a false statement. Even in people with 90 years of age, physical activity has shown benefits. So this is a false statement. Physical activity benefits people all ages equally. This is also false. With age, the magnitude of benefit actually decreases. The magnitude of benefit of physical activity decreases, but it does not mean that there is no benefit at all for older people. So this is a false. Equally is false. C. Improvement due to physical activity can be seen in both old and young people, but improvement is relatively small in old people. This is correct. This is what I discussed in the previous two options. And D. Uh, physical activity yields no improvement for both uh, classes of people. This is false. So the question is, so you have to be very careful. Which of the following cases are false? So in this case, options A, B, and D are false. So these are the correct options. Since these statements are false, we have to choose these as the correct answers because that is what is asked in the question. Which of the following statements are false? So A, B, and D are the correct answers. Moving on to the next question. Which of the following are false for motor unit recruitment? So again, you can go through this question and pause the video and try and answer the question yourself, and then we'll have a discussion regarding the same. So A, motor unit recruitment happens in the order of decreasing size. Motor unit de-recruitment, no, this is not true. We know according to Henneman's principle that motor unit recruitment happens in the order of increasing size, right? So the smaller is recruited first, followed by uh, larger motor units. So this is a false statement. So again, which of the following statements are false? So this always be careful of this. Motor unit de-recruitment happens in order of decreasing size. This is true. So when de-recruitment happens, first the larger motor unit is de-recruited, and then the smaller ones. C. Motor unit recruitment happens in the order of increasing size. This is correct. Uh, and D. Motor recruitment, both recruitment and de-recruitment happens in the order of increasing size. This is false. So the answer is A and D. These are the two false statements. Which of the following statements are true? Again, you can go through this. I'll just drink some water and then we'll discuss this. Which of the following statements are true? A. Myofascial force transmission happens between fibers and tendons. No, it's actually myotendinous force transmission happens between fibers and tendons. So this is a false statement. Pectoralis muscle is an example of a circular muscle. No, actually, the mouth muscles is an example. The muscles in the mouth are examples of circular muscles. Pectoralis muscles are examples of convergent muscles. So the fascicles are arranged in this fashion in the pectoralis muscle. So I think this is the muscle in the chest. The pectoralis muscle is a chest muscle. So this is a false statement. Myofascial force transmission happens between the muscle fiber and the connecting tissue like fascicles. This is correct. Aging causes pennate angle to decrease and hence force production increases, but decrease in volume causes decrease in overall force production. So we just discussed this in a few in one of the previous MCQs. I had explained this concept. So aging causes uh, a decrease in pennation angle. This is because there is loss of muscle mass. So since there is decrease in muscle angle, the component, the F cos theta of the fiber, which is the component of force that is transmitted to the muscle fiber, that component, since theta is less, that component is higher. However, the overall effect, since there is less number of fibers, the overall effect is that uh, the overall force that is transmitted to the tendon is less. So let us read this again. Aging causes pennation angle to decrease. This is correct, and hence force production increases. But decrease in volume causes decrease in overall force production. This is correct. Exercise causes decrease in density of muscle fibers and hence force production capacity increases. This is false. Exercise actually causes an increase in the density of the muscle fiber, not a decrease in the density. And F, when all muscle fibers of when all fibers of a muscle are at 90 degrees to the tendon, it is called as a fusiform muscle. No, this is not true. Not all muscle fibers attach to the tendons. This is correct. It is not. It's not necessary for a muscle fiber to attach to a tendon all the time, and all muscle fibers attach to the tendon. This is false. So the answer is C, D, and G and G. Yeah. Question 19. Which of the following statements are true? Slow twitch fibers produce more peak force, but at a slower rate than fast twitch fibers. Let us just look at what slow twitch fibers and fast twitch fibers do. So, slow twitch fibers. So this is, I think, the correct way to present this should be slow twitch motor units rather than fibers. But let's discuss this question thinking that just replace the word fibers with motor units. So slow twitch motor units produce more peak force, but at a slower rate than fast twitch motor units. So let us just look at what is. These are two examples. So this is this is a slow twitch. This is time. This is force. The y-axis is force. So in slow twitch motor units, the force that is produced is less. Force that is produced is less, but it is produced for a longer period of time. Whereas in fast twitch motor units, the force that is produced is higher, but it is produced for a shorter period of time. But the time taken for it to reach the peak force is lesser. So the contraction time is lesser. Let us see. Slow twitch fibers produce more peak force. This itself is false. It does not produce more peak force, but at a slower rate than fast twitch fibers. Fast twitch fibers produce more peak force. This is correct, but at a slower rate than slow twitch fibers? No, we know that the contraction time is less. Slow twitch fibers produce more peak force at a faster rate. Slow twitch fibers produce more peak force at a faster rate than fast twitch fibers. This is also false. D. Fast twitch fibers produce greater force at a faster rate than slow twitch fibers. This is correct. Both slow and fast twitch fibers produce almost equal peak force, but fast twitch fibers produce the force at a faster rate. This is not true. They do not produce almost equal peak force. Both slow and fast twitch fibers produce almost equal peak force. No, but slow twitch fibers produce the force at a lower rate. So this is also false. In aged adults, fast twitch fibers produce more force than slow twitch fibers, whereas it is reverse in younger adults. No, this is not true. And slow twitch fibers are not fatigued easily compared to fast twitch fibers. This is correct. So the answer is D and H. Okay, I'm going to stop the session now. I hope that some of you will watch the recorded video session and get some benefit out of it. Thank you.